Plaxico's
That's correct.
car. And then P2 was Deputy Rice's car.
That's correct.
Okay. Now,
Excuse me.
if we can take a look at this, Defense Exhibit 1, that's your car, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this is the street light that they asked you about a minute ago, right?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, yes.
Right. You can't really tell in that photograph but if you kind of Defense Exhibit 4 shows Mr. Plaxico, Lieutenant Plaxico's truck and Officer Rice's, Deputy Rice's patrol car, right?
That's correct.
All right, and so that would be kind of looking sort of this way, kind of back towards where your car was a little bit.
No, it's looking straight toward the front door of the house.
Well, I'm sorry, where the picture's taken, I mean, Mr. Lieutenant Plaxico's pointed towards the front of the house.
That's correct.
All right, so the picture would have been taken back over here on the roadside.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Now, as I understand it, the exchange of gunfire happened real quick right after you got there.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And you can, in the video we showed, you can see some of the other deputies and officers arriving.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And you were still in your car.
That's correct.
And you were getting your weapon, which they pulled out and showed a minute ago, right?
That's correct.
And I think you were also getting your flashlight, weren't you?
I don't recall getting the flashlight, but
you have testified in a pre-trial hearing, haven't you?
I have.
Okay. And if I could just have you look at your testimony on page 429, beginning at line 20, and going over to 430. Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, it does.
And it does say that one of the items that you
Was
were
my
getting-
flashlight? That's correct.
Okay. And so, even with this street light there and Deputy Rice's spotlight, you were still grabbing your flashlight.
It's usually a common thing when you're working night shift.
Yeah, this is normal.
Correct.
And as I understand it, you were still in the car and your left foot had just hit the ground when the shot started.
That's correct.
And so you immediately, I think you took off your safety, and after the first or second shot, you returned fire.
That's correct.
So you weren't actually focused on the door when the shots began, were you?
I could see the storm door against Mr. Benny Brown, and when I pulled the trigger the first couple of times, I could see the storm door break, the glass door break.
But when the shot started, you were still getting out of the car?
That's correct.
Okay. And once you got out of the car, that's when you could turn and see what was going on?
That's correct.
Okay. And all of this happened real fast, right?
Yes.
And in fact, at one point you thought that you'd maybe gotten off as many as 10 rounds. Right?
That's correct.
But of course, when they ultimately came back and counted them, it was 7.
That's correct.
Right. And that's just, I guess, a function of how things were happening really fast.
Yes.
Okay. And then once that gunfire shot, then went back into the house, right?
That's correct.
All right. And when it stopped, he was back in the house.
Yes.
And there was no more gunfire after that.
No.
And eventually, Benny negotiated his surrender, basically.
That's correct.
All right, and there were some questions earlier, you were probably here, that could have been maybe 10 or 15 minutes later.
That's correct.
All right, well, he did get on a cell phone talking to dispatch, right?
Yes.
All right, and one of the concerns is how you get somebody in this situation out of the house. Is that right?
That's correct.
And normally under protocol, you want them to come to you.
Yes.
All right, and then that's just safety.
Safer for everyone.
Right, safety for everyone. But that was complicated here a little bit because Benny had been shot in the hip.
That's correct.
And so he was in this time where, for lack of a better word, negotiations, discussions were going on. You know, there had to be a determination of how do we handle this situation when he can't walk out the same way.
And that was not my call. We was only there to assist the sheriff's department.
Right, you were there to assist the sheriff, but you knew that this was going on.
That's correct.
And so that took some time, and eventually Benny was able to get to the front door, right?
He was.
And to get out on the porch.
Yes.
And that's when the other officers that were there went up to Benny and got him down onto the ground where they gave him some medical attention.
That's correct.
All right. And you know if the gun was found in the house later?
It was.
All right, so he didn't bring the gun out with him at that
No,
point.
he did not.
Okay. All right. Now, there was, when you got there, there was this crowd of people in the yard.
That's correct.
And you don't remember exactly how many of them there were.
I do not.
And you don't know if Deputy Rice knew any of them,
I don't.
or knew Benny Brown.
I do not.
But you could just tell he was in the yard trying to clear the situation.
From what I can tell, yes.
But truthfully, at that time, you weren't really that focused on, when the shot started, you weren't focused on.
No, I wasn't.
What's happening in the crowd.
No, it wasn't.
All right. This picture, Defense Exhibit 37, that's the same angle that they showed you on direct, basically,
Yes.
isn't it? Okay. And it's a picture from inside Benny's house looking out, right?
Yes.
And up in this area is where your car is, right?
That's correct.
And in this photograph, you can tell where this number 24 marker is. By the way, you weren't part of placing any of these markers.
No, sir.
Where that number 24 marker is, you can see that that's where it goes out on the front porch.
Yes.
Of course, we have the front porch over here in Defense number 64, so there's steps coming down.
Yes.
So this area right out in here is actually looking out of Benny's house down into the grass, would actually be down the stairs, right?
Right.
Okay. And the area up at the top here where your car is, you can actually see, at least up here by Barrel State Road, that there's a slope up.
That's correct.
And I believe you were here when Lieutenant Plexico testified.
Yes.
And so you would agree with him, I think, that Barrel State was elevated above the yard.
It is.
Okay. And again, you weren't involved in putting any of the markers out there, were you?
No, sir.
But you can see where this marker 28 is in the picture, right?
I can.
Looking out Benny's door.
Yes.
Right? And you don't know what that is, do you?
I have no clue.
Or what any of these other markers are.
I couldn't tell you what any of the markers in the yard stand for.
All right. But you can sort of see where this trash bag is and marker is in the smaller picture?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So from the front door over to marker 28, that's kind of to the right a little bit.
That's correct.
And from the front door up to your car is more to the left, right?
That's correct.
And of course, you were a little bit further this way where the door was.
Yes.
And so 28 again is to the right and down.
Yes.
And where you were is to the left and up, if you're looking out front door.
That's correct.
Okay. You didn't hear any command order to keep witnesses at the scene?
I did not.
All right, but you did, I think, realize that in the video that Chris Brown and Rico had come up into the area where you were.
Yes.
And at that time, you didn't know that one or both of them had a gun, did you?
I did not.
All right, you found that out later.
Later, that's correct.
Okay. They certainly didn't come up and say, hey, we've got this gun that they claim was one in the box now, one of these boxes, and turn it over to you, did they?
No.
As far as you know, no officer on the scene that night saw that gun?
No.
Then?
No, sir.
All right.
Excuse me.
I want to go back to when the shot started. When Benny opened the door and he started firing, he was trained in one place, wasn't he?
As far as I can tell, that's correct.
All right. And that's testimony you gave at a prior hearing.
Yes.
That was your observations that night.
Yes.
And today it's still your recollection that he was trained in one area.
One area, the group of people standing with Roger Rice.
And not spraying the gun around indiscriminately.
That's correct.
Thank you for your indulgence. Yes. Officer Prather, thank you for being here and thank you for answering my questions. I know today's a tough day.
Can you redirect? Yes. Shane, you said when you arrived, when you were pulling up, that Roger was already down in the yard.
Yes.
And so we know he had been there some time before you got there.
Yeah.
And we established that his headlights were on and his blue lights were on.
Yes.
So you don't know how long he had been there before you got there.
I do not.
But he did have an opportunity to park his car and walk down here, and then you arrived, and so we know however long he was there, 38 seconds you were there,
Correct.
and then the shots began to fire. So you don't know how long he had been in the yard.
I do not.
In that illuminated yard video. Do you have any, do you know about how long it could have taken him to walk from here down into this area?
No idea. Several seconds, maybe.
You said you were there to assist the sheriff. Was this was in Clinton, though, right?
It was.
Okay, but it is in Lawrence County?
It is.
Okay. All right, you said that when Mr. Gross was asking you, you look out the front door, your car was kind of left and up.
Yes.
And is that your testimony? That's the way he was aiming to the left?
To the left. To his left.
Okay. So that would have put all these automobiles in his path?
Yes, could.
Okay. As well as Deputy Rice, any of those other people in that group?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Very briefly, the 38 seconds, that's actually from the beginning of the video, right?
I'm not sure. I'm assuming since that's when they got the video started.
And that actually started a little bit before you got there.
Correct.
And obviously, you don't know what happened before you got there.
That's correct.
Nothing further.
All right, sir, thank you. You may step down. And you are free to stay or you are free to go if your choice. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, what we're going to do at this point in time is take a brief break. The clerk is sending one for people to go and collect your lunch at 12:30. I also need to know, I mentioned yesterday afternoon, if any of you have any special dietary needs, whatever, one salad instead of pizza, need to let them know so we can make those accommodations for you. Okay, so we'll take about a 10-minute break. We'll send with one more witness, and then I anticipate the case will be here to take our lunch. I'm not talking about the case, I'll have it back out here. Right? I want to talk about it.